So we're talking about a serious topic this episode. We're going to be looking into surviving financial abuse, and we're going to be doing that with a very impressive woman called Tammy Casselson. Tammy was in a relationship that looked perfect from the outside, but behind closed doors, it was a different matter. She experienced years of coercive control, including financial abuse that left her and her children facing homelessness. Tammy has since rebuilt her life, and now she's sharing her story to help others spot the red flags, start difficult conversations, and support survivors. That's this episode of Money and a Good Life. My name's Stephanie Coombes, and I'm here with my co-host and my mate, Ryan Watson. G'day, Ryan.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
I'm good. This is an important topic.
It is indeed. Yeah, it's looking forward in a constructive and positive way to get into the conversation today. But yeah, see it very much a serious topic.
We care about this one a lot. I think that this is something that Tribeca really is at the core of what you guys do, which is making sure that everybody has a good understanding of where they are financially and that they have the tools to sort of empower themselves to make good decisions. The person that we're talking to today is Tammy Casselson. She's an author, an advocate, an educator, and a survivor of financial abuse. She's written a book, The Grimmest of Fairy Tales, based on her lived experience of family violence, which can be harrowing, but also does offer some hope. Tammy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've described your relationship in the beginning as being like a fairy tale, right? But that wasn't really what was going on, was it? So do you mind taking us through?
Absolutely. And often that is what happens. You know, you start off a relationship. I was only 15 when I met my ex, and he was completely charming and loving, and he won my family over by being funny and interesting, and we were very in love.
And when did you start to notice that things weren't quite right? 15 is very young. It is very young.
Yes, it is very young.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with coercive control. You don't notice very easily, you know, and we talk about gaslighting. So you question yourself. There's little light jokes and there's little red flags that you don't really realize what's going on. And even when you do think this doesn't seem right, you're not sure. And if you do ask someone or you question the person, they make you think it's your fault or that you are blowing it out of proportion or you're very sensitive. So that's the emotional control. And then the financial stuff I didn't have any idea about. I had absolutely no idea. It was happening throughout my marriage. I really had no idea until the very end, really, that there was anything happening. Because I was so young, it was very contained. My money was going into that I was earning. I earned money throughout our marriage. I had very short times that I took off work when I was just when I had my babies, but otherwise I always earned money, sometimes more than he did, and that money would go into our joint account, but really I had no access to that money, that I wasn't really even aware that I didn't have access to that money. It was just the way things were done. He looked after the financial side of our marriage, which a lot of people do, and I looked after the house and the children, and he would give me an allowance. And because there was always money, there was enough money to do things until he was really punishing me because I wasn't doing what he wanted me to do, I never questioned it. It was only really towards the end when things really got bad that I started questioning it. And only when I started questioning it, then his behavior escalated. And that's when I started really questioning what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, when you're 15 and you're in a relationship, you had no scope of previous relationships. You had nothing to compare it to. There were no comparisons for, is this healthy or is this not healthy? This was just all that you had known.
Yeah.
How long until you were married?
I mean, we were together for quite a while, but we did get married relatively young.
Yeah.
It's not that young. I mean, I got married when I was 22, so that's not that young. But youngish, but we were together for all that time. And we started saving money together very young, but he looked after that money.
Yeah. So the relationship, you started to question the relationship, I'm guessing, and then, is this normal? Is this right? Should this be how it's happening? And that's when the behaviour started to change?
So as soon as I started asserting myself and being independent, trying to be independent, that's when he started escalating behaviour. And really, because I'm a people pleaser. So as long as I was being a people pleaser and everything was okay. It's only when I would want to go out with my friends that things were uncomfortable in our relationship. So there was emotional manipulation and isolation and things like that. And that's when you realise things are not right. For example, I had a friend who was she died of cancer, and when she was very unwell, I was spending time with her towards the end, and he would be saying terrible things to me, like he would be telling my children that I am abandoning them, and I would be watching my friends being really looked after by their husbands, and I wasn't being cared for. And that's when I realised this relationship is not right. That's when the realisation came to me.
Yeah.
But yet I still didn't know. That was the end of our relationship. But I still didn't know there was anything financially going on with us.
And what was the financial
realisation? The financial
Yeah.
realisation started happening when I then started getting calls where people were looking for money. So what he would do was he was borrowing from one person to lend, pay another person to another. So he was borrowing from lots of different banks, loan sharks, friends, family, and I didn't know any of it. So it was all in his name. But then when I started getting the phone calls, that's when I started questioning him. And when I started questioning him, I then wanted access. I started asking for access to banking.
Yeah.
And that's when he then got upset with me and escalated his behaviour.
Yeah.
And that was when things really came to a head.
Where was the money going?
We still don't have all the answers. So it's probably either woman gambling, drugs, one of those areas.
Yeah.
As much as you want to know the answers, you still don't know the answers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
unfortunately, I'll never know. Yeah.
You'll never know. And you had been working that entire time and contributing, and you had no idea that there was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be so difficult because you thought you had this life and you thought you had this security, and then it's all sort of folded in unexpectedly.
It was huge. I mean, when everything exploded, I mean, it was just huge. So basically, eventually everything just collapsed. So we went through a short period where I was asking questions, his behaviour was escalating, the threats were escalating, and then one day I found him slumped over his desk. He had attempted suicide, and I came home and I started looking through his things next to his bed. I'd never looked at his stuff, and I found we were being thrown out of our home. We actually had a property, but that had to be sold. We lost that property. He had multiple loans on that, and he had $1 million of debt in my name.
In your name?
In my name, $1 million of debt,
awful.
plus debt in his name.
Yeah, I did want to ask Tammy, because you mentioned a lot of earlier the debt was in his name, but what we do hear in some instances that they take it out, and so that happened to you.
Yeah, I had $1 million of debt in my name.
I can't
that I
comprehend
had no
that.
idea about. Yeah.
What are the repercussions of that? I mean, can you?
I was very lucky. So I had a financial counsellor who helped me. I mean, there are amazing people out there to help you today. And I was lucky enough because I had evidence of abuse. Most of it got wiped out. Some of it had to be paid off with the house, the property that we had. I mean, we were homeless. We were literally homeless for a period of time. And then we had to be helped out. So we were in, charity home for a period of time. We had to be helped with schooling. We had to be helped with everything for a period. I was lucky enough to be in a job.
Yeah.
But I was going to work and pretending everything was fine. But we were going literally. We had all the cars were taken away. Well, my car and his car were taken away. Everything was. We lost everything.
How old were you at this time?
So I was in my 40s. My children were in their teen years.
Oh, my goodness.
My son was doing VCE.
Okay.
It was
so hard.
The most important thing was just to keep them safe and secure. My ex was very unwell, very toxic.
Yeah.
So I was going through. So even though I made the decision to leave him at that stage, which was very difficult because it looked like I was abandoning him, and that's what he made out to everybody that I was doing. That and because people don't understand financial abuse, they think that it's not as bad as it is.
Yeah.
It looked like I was the bad one for a lot of people. It was lies and deceit for almost our whole marriage. And so it was a very terrible time. And then obviously his behavior escalated. There was a lot of very horrific behavior, threats and stuff like that. We were in and out of court for 8 years while he, I had to protect my children. I thought that he was coming to kill us.
Yeah.
So it was a really terrible time.
I mean, that is devastating and actually terrifying. It is. I think that you said an interesting point that people don't really understand financial abuse.
They don't.
Why is that, do you think?
First of all, I think we don't talk about money. And that's why I love your show. I think it's so important that we talk about money. What is it? Like, people would prefer to talk about sex than talk about money.
Yeah. It's the oldest taboo.
Yeah.
Money.
I just don't get it. And so, I had friends and family who lent him money and never told me about it. Look, he was a very charming man. He was diagnosed as a narcissist. So he was very good at borrowing money from them and actually saying that he was lending the money because of me, because I was unwell and, he didn't want to stress me. But at the same time, nobody told me anything.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. And it just added more stress to the whole situation. And so I think it's really important that we talk about these things. And also one of the biggest things is that we all understand, what's going on in our lives.
Yeah.
And also understand that there are different forms of abuse, and that financial abuse it can be one of the really most life-destroying,
devastating
and devastating forms of abuse.
I can't imagine what it would feel like finding out that you were $1 million in debt for money that you did not like. I can't actually imagine. That would have been it'd give some people a stroke. It would be like give you an aneurysm, because it's an incomprehensible amount of money.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's incomprehensible. And where do you even start?
No, well, I was frozen.
Yeah.
So very lucky to have people around me who could help me.
Yeah.
And you talked, Tammy, then about financial counsellor that helped you. Could you just elaborate, take us through a little bit more about that process, if that's okay?
Yeah. So, I mean, at that time, I was very lucky to be set up with a charity who I had a social worker who helped me and the kids. I had someone who helped me with housing, and then I had a financial counsellor. And so I would see the financial counsellor who would help me with a budget, who would help me with actually looking at each debt, and because each debt obviously you deal with differently. So, looking at, what the debt is, some of the banks were nicer about it.
Okay.
Some of them would remove it straight away. Some of them you had to pay off little amounts. Some of them, it stayed on your credit report for a certain amount of time. Some of them, they would remove it completely.
So the financial counsellor allowed you, put it into bite-sized chunks as opposed to it being this big beast.
Exactly.
Individual banks, individual debts, and what's the individual strategy to tackle each of those.
Exactly, yeah.
Would have been like a full-time job, though, unpicking that.
It is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I was working, I was looking after the kids and making sure they were secure and making sure they did the best at school and socially, and then
as well as the devastation as well that you were dealing with.
The
something so hard.
devastation is just huge. There's so much grief. You've lost this relationship. You lose a lot of other relationships. You lose all dreams of what your future is going to be like. You lose your past because this relationship that you thought you had wasn't really a relationship. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
What are some of the red flags that you, now looking back, you can see that they were there, that people in your situation now, who are in the situation you were in before, might also be missing?
It's such a difficult question because, people ask you this and you want to be able to offer this advice to people. And because I really wasn't able to be given any hints at anything, it's so difficult to know. I think one of the things is that we didn't have transparency. So one of the things that I really talk about a lot is that a healthy relationship has transparency. And so the red flag is that I didn't know what was going on financially. There are healthy relationships where people don't know, but how do you know which one you're in? And then I think that one of the big red flags for me was a lot of broken promises. So we would be often planning for things and we'd plan a holiday, then it would disappear. We'd plan another holiday, it would disappear. There would often be promises for things and then they would disappear. So I think that's a big red flag.
Yeah, he was just spinning plates, trying to keep things, keep the lies.
And I think often there would be good times and then bad times. And I think that was when obviously money came in, then money didn't come in. Then, so now that I see it, I can, so he didn't have money for textbooks for the kids. And then the next week, suddenly they got brand new shoes. So it was a lot of reward and punishment. And so that's what the confusing part was. You couldn't say, well, we don't have money because suddenly there were rewards.
Yeah.
So, I think that combination of confusing things is a red flag.
I mean, we do know that it's important for both couples to be aware of what's going on in your finances, and you're a big advocate for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love how Tammy there has highlighted the transparency piece. We know in partnered couples, there's generally people who would gravitate in those relationships to serving different roles and serving each other.
Yeah.
But an element, to whatever degree, of openness, honesty and transparency, particularly when it comes to money.
Yeah.
So, like, I know in my wife, in our relationship, I know that, that she has a whole lot of other skills and, money wasn't naturally her one. But when we started initially going out, we actually got a financial advisor ourselves.
Yeah.
So despite the fact I'm the CEO and run a financial advisory firm, I wanted that arm's length and that transparency in our relationship.
I think that's important. I think the transparency is a really good word. You have said before that sometimes when you're in these financial advising sessions, it's almost like a counselling session, that you're dealing with different people and different views on money. As you said, Tammy, it's not always coercive control when you don't know what's going on in your finances, but some people might be surprised, I'm guessing, in those sessions that you run.
They might be, and if you think about a partnered couple, it's almost like two individuals who feel the need to take a side. Whereas if they deal with a financial professional, whether that's a counsellor or a financial advisor, there's someone there who can just drive from logic, who facilitates a conversation and helps people understand, we've discussed it before, like what's someone's money script, what's their relationship with money, how do we get a partner couple in that instance to have shared goals. We've said multiple times, right, the amount of times our advisors hear from a couple that's been married 20, 25 years in a goal-setting session, I've never heard you say that, I've never heard you want that. It's really hard after a whole lot of time for people then to say this. But when you've got someone to facilitate that conversation, that's where the gold nuggets come out and help find true alignment.
Yeah.
I think you're so correct. And that's what I'm trying to advocate for, is that people talk more about it. Like whether it's pre-marriage, we do these pre-marriage counselling sessions, we need more of that talking about it before and then also afterwards, just having those conversations. And I think we do, work to our strengths. And so, for example, I actually did a commerce degree. So you can imagine how stupid you feel when this happens to you. I mean, feel like an absolute idiot that you then let your partner take on that role.
But you trust them. This is the thing. You trust them.
That is what it is.
That's what it comes down to.
You feel like, I trusted you. It's not what the area I want to play in. You're good at being organised. I want to play in the area of children and giving my life to that side. So that's what we did. But it's about teaching people that it's not about that. That trust is also about knowing what's going on. And then also you're reducing the stress on both partners because, problem shared is a problem halved. And how important that is. And I also love the idea that even though that's your area, that you then go to someone else to mediate.
Yeah,
and I think that's so important.
Because for me, it would just be too close to home and it would be too easy for me to default to that role. And that's not what I wanted for us. And so what I'm hearing, Tammy, in that is that, naturally in life, people will default to roles and responsibilities where they're special, but there's an and around transparency.
Yeah. That you still know what's going on. And so if you're going to the insurance agent or you're going to work on any part of your finances,
loans with a bank, the accountants,
everybody knows what's going on in the relationship. And I think that's what I'm advocating for.
There's something I've learned from this podcast.
Yes.
Let it be this. You cannot fully delegate your finances to your other partner.
Yeah.
You can't. You can have one person do the lion's share or whatever, but you cannot let that go to one party because it's too important. It's too big. And it's, I think, Tammy, you have an incredibly powerful story. But on the other end of the spectrum, it's just needing to know what's going on,
And that's why I'm sharing it, is so that people do learn from it. 'Cause even if you're in a healthy relationship.
Even people in a healthy relationship can make bad choices as well. It's not always malicious.
Well, I did want to highlight this.
Yeah.
So even in healthier relationships and one individual of the partnership might take on the financial responsibility, but they might see that and feel that as a real burden.
Yeah,
so if it's the male, they might see society stop, but they don't know everything, and then I don't want to tell anyone I don't know everything, and they might make decisions based on who they met on a golf course or their ego. But for them to have shared responsibility in the partnership and work with a professional, suddenly everything's just a lot easier and freer. But sometimes it's healthy, but we just take on these roles and responsibilities, and we don't know.
And if you delegate it and you're not aware of what's going on, even if you're not an expert in it, you might be like, whoa, hold on. We're putting what where now? Or it's like, why are we spending so much money on this? It's like, or I didn't know we're kind of going out backwards.
Yeah.
Because there is that shame that as well comes with if you were just not quite managing, that you feel like, I'm the provider, I need to have this sorted out. And if you don't have it sorted out, there comes the shame, and then that's when it's all...
And in a very practical sense, yes, I'm a male. So therefore, if I was, say, charged with doing something that's physical, like putting a dog kennel together, Steph, it would not be a good... It would not be a good outcome. No good. Dog sleeps inside. Yeah. 2 dogs sleep inside.
Yeah, okay,
so there we
that's
go.
it. Well, that sounds like it's turned out really well for them.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, they win.
When you talk about, a coercive relationship, obviously these things don't just start at 100, right? This sort of stuff creeps in slowly.
That's right.
Was that your experience as well?
Oh, totally. That's why you don't see it.
Yeah.
It's so insidious. It's very slow. It's
incremental.
Very incremental. That's why you don't notice it. And it's so slow and... So clever.
Yeah.
the isolation, the little silly jokes that make you feel stupid. I say in the book that I didn't even see it as an abusive relationship until I was out of the relationship, because you don't understand what's going on.
And the hard part, if you didn't see it that way, people around you certainly wouldn't have seen it that way.
No.
Which brings me to the legal battle that you went through, because you said that you spent 8 years in and out of court.
Yeah.
How were you treated during that legal process?
Oh, it was horrific. The legal system is so messed up. And look, he escalated. So his behavior was just horrific. It often happens that the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when a woman leaves a relationship, because that's when the perpetrator feels like they're losing control. And so that's when we see them really increasing their threats. We see stalking at an excruciating level, thousands of text messages and calls, and really getting very abusive. It was horrific. And that's when, we were just spending hours, at police stations, at court, etc. And what's scary is that people don't believe you, and people don't understand what's going on. And also they've only seen this person be charming. So it's very hard for them to then understand what you're saying. It's a horrible place to be.
I would have thought that $1 million of debt that was not under your name would have been enough for people to take your side on this, but you are obviously dealing with a very smart operator.
He's so extremely smart. People, first of all, minimize that. So they say, well, he must have been under a lot of stress to do that. They make excuses for him. And secondly, they say, you'll forgive him and you'll go back to him. They don't understand that this person has lied to you and cheated for all this time. He's signed documents in your name. But also there's all the other stuff that he's done. He's threatened to harm you. He's threatened to harm your children. He's threatened to harm himself to make you do things. And then he's now doing that, continuing to do that. He's saying terrible things and continuing to do things like that.
And people expected you just to take it back.
Yeah. And then he's also, they continue. The financial abuse continues. They refuse to pay child support. They'll refuse to pay child support, and then they'll phone up the children and say, but I'll take you on an overseas trip. Come and see me and I'll take you on an overseas trip. The abuse is just crazy. They try and get you arrested for silly reasons.
Yeah.
It's
just imposing on your life.
Yeah.
As you said, unless you've lived it, it's true. It's hard to understand.
It's practically impossible to understand. And, it's...
I think it's mostly because people just can't imagine that someone would be so hostile. They can't imagine someone would act in such bad faith and be such a... It's like, there must be something else going on.
It's very difficult to understand that this charming person that you've seen would act in that way. But also it's hard because you've fallen for it. So this person, you've also fallen for it, and you've lent them hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars in the case. And so it means that you've got to question your own judgment.
It's a really interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. This story does go happily, though, because you did get out of this relationship. You have rebuilt your life. Clearly, you're a very strong person. What was the rebuilding process like, and how are you situated now?
Yeah, so that's very important. I really, my book is written in a way that it's about hope. It's about the fact that my children are incredible. They are successful. They are happy. I'm good. I want people to know there is hope, that although I have a lot of post-traumatic stress symptoms, I also have post-traumatic growth. And I think I want people to know that you can grow through terrible times.
Well, before we started recording, you were talking about the fantastic trip you've just taken with your 21-year-old daughter.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I do want people to know there's hope. It's not easy. It was really a difficult time, especially those 8 years. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, work in terms of making sure that the kids had a lot of support around them, making sure that there's a community around you. People need to support you. We had an amazing support network in terms of the school who held us, making sure that there are, social workers and psychologists, and, there's a lot of amazing networks around in terms of counsellors, like financial counsellors, but also doing work like, for example, I do things like mindfulness meditation and just working on growing. I think it's really important, learning how to be empowered and finding people to support you, learning how to take help, learning how to give help. I do a lot of support for other people.
Okay, so you're giving back to people who've gone through.
I do, and I think that's so important. So I do a lot of advocacy work.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to see change?
Oh, lots.
That's a lot.
So I started my advocacy work very silently. It was very difficult to get my voice back, and obviously I wasn't allowed to for a short period of time. It's difficult to get to speak, and so I started with blogs. And for not everyone has to tell their story. I really want to make that quite clear. Not everyone has to tell their story. I wanted to tell my story because I wanted people to know that this can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
I come from a middle-class background. I'm well educated. I come from a good home, good values, good background. I had all the protective factors, and yet it happened to me. People believe that it doesn't happen in their neighborhoods. It happens to everyone and anyone. Can happen to anyone and anyone. So I just want everyone to know that, listen to the people around you. If someone tells you something's happened to them, listen and acknowledge them, believe them, and support them, and ask them how they need the support. What can you do to support them? Because really, it's not about what you want to do for them. It's about how do they need support. And that's about really building a village around people. So I really talk about building a support and having allies around us, because that's the most important thing. I want us to work together to build this idea of transparency. I really want to build awareness and education around abuse and understanding the different types of abuse, that all abuse is equally as destructive, and what can we do about it, and actually taking steps around it, that everybody can do something. Yeah, and we can start building into our policies and procedures that we can make things safer for women and men. It doesn't only happen to women, that people don't take advantage of the systems, because at the moment you can take advantage of the system. Perpetrators know exactly how to use the system to their benefit. And so we're starting to be able to create systems that don't allow perpetrators to do that.
Do you have an example of that?
So there are amazing organisations working to write into banking and other organisations actual policies and procedures, ways that you now can't take advantage of it. So, for example, we had my loans. My ex took 3 mortgages on my loan that wasn't even in his name.
I mean, that is appalling. That is a really bad failure of the system, that could happen and you couldn't know about it, and that was... And if it's happened to you, it's happened to a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Tammy, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open about it as well. I agree, what you're doing and what you're saying is important, because we have this view that I think that financial abuse isn't abuse. I think that that's a really good point. It is, and it can have extraordinary ramifications for a person's life outside of that relationship. So thank you for being so brave for telling it. Tammy's book is called The Grimmest of Fairy Tales, and we'll include some links to that in the show notes. If you're listening and this conversation has brought up something for you, help is actually available. you can contact 1-800-RESPECT, that is 1-800-737-732. Beyond Blue, 1300 22 46 36. And there's Kids Helpline as well, 1-800 55 1800. Make sure that you follow Money and a Good Life wherever you're listening now if you don't want to miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Advice given in this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to influence decisions about investing or financial products. Our listeners should always seek their own professional advice that considers their own personal circumstances before making any financial decisions.